I want to know if we step way back when Devin is 5 years old, between 5 and 8 years old.
Yeah.
Don't give me the details of what's going on, and like we're gonna get into it, but don't tell me it's this date and like my dad is here or my mom is here. What is the feeling? What is the emotional feeling? It could be like content, fearful. Just I want to know the feeling of Devin between that 5 and 8 years old range.
It gets emotional right here, but if I could look at a picture of myself, because I do this often, because I go back and look at pictures of me from my childhood, and I think right now, it's like that kid had no clue what he was about to endure. So if I was looking at a picture of myself at 5 years old, I could see a kid who didn't know what was going on around him specifically, but he knew that it did not feel right. That kid at 5 years old knew that the hatred around him is something that's not right, but he doesn't know how to explain that it's wrong.
Mm.
I could look at that kid and see that he just wants everything to just stop, for everything to be okay. Like I had a clear conscience at a very young age.
Really?
Yeah, I had a very clear conscience. I believe that was
Of
a gift of
what's
God.
right and wrong.
What's right and wrong, what the people should be doing. I could tell a lie just like that. It's just I think those first 4 years of trauma, 5 years of trauma, kind of just opened that mind up to understand. Like, hey, man, just to be funny. I mean, I was 12 years old giving advice to grown-ups, at cookouts, stuff like that. And it's just, I believe God gave me the wisdom. But yeah, if I had to look at a picture of a 5-year-old Devin, I could understand and see that that kid was stuck and forced to live in such a broken environment, in such a broken emotional mindset that he could not escape. And I believe that that's a kid that God was literally holding.
Mm.
He was holding his hand, pushing him through things, keeping him through the night. I remember being very sensitive and emotionally, like, I thought, I was just being emotional because I was very in tune.
Mm.
I was that kid was very.
Did people ever take advantage of that in a sense of like bullying and pushing around? Because at that age, that's a very people don't want to see that anyway. Like young people are going to make fun of that.
100%. I believe that at that time period, it's just you growing up in the heart of Memphis, and it's like, kids' fathers are gangsters, and kids' mothers are, prostitutes, things of that nature. People that aren't really just like anything that don't want anything to do with God. And so the definition of being a man was that you couldn't cry, you couldn't have any type of emotional, outbreak or anything like that. You can have compassion without feeling weak, or they even relate having compassion, having a sense of niceness about you, or having some sense of emotion. They would consider that to be homosexual. Even it's a very toxic environment. Like they would relate if you're overly happy, you're gay.
What does self-respect look like?
Self-respect
in that form of
yeah. So if you could take
community,
like hygiene type deal, or
well, like if someone can't be happy or a little bit more than happy, and they're going to be called gay.
Yeah.
What is an example of someone who had respected themselves?
Yeah.
How did they carry themselves?
Honestly, it's almost like a delusion, because in a sense, for you to appear to be a man, or appear to be the popular guy, or appear to be, somebody who has respect for yourself, you're very, very mean and rude and very hateful. You're always angry. You're always willing to fight. Always having to prove your manliness. Always having to prove how hard you are, and that nature. So it's a very toxic thing, and all the kids were dealing with it. Looking back, those kids were suffering. And so I'm trying to understand your question here.
Well, the last one.
Yeah.
I guess in that community, in that time, think of someone who was the prime example of someone who's made it, has it all.
Yeah. So that in the heart of Memphis, me and talking Shelby Drive, like Kirby Parkway, things of that nature. South Memphis even. What about Booker T? For somebody that's made it, obviously, you have the chains, you have the rings, you have the cars, you have the support system, but really they're leeches if you look at it. You when you made it, you have fame and success. Everybody knows your name. Everybody knows that you won't take any stuff from anybody. They know that you're the hard guy.
Mm,
You're the guy that nobody wants to mess with. Nobody wants to throw hands with. That's what it means to be successful. That's what it meant. That's what it looked like to be the man. And
okay.
it was a very toxic deal. You you were heartless towards women. You didn't respect them, but for some reason, you always wanted one. And I believe that comes from like a father's being in the home,
Mm,
and even if the father was in the home, there was a lack of love there. I believe a child learns how to love a woman by looking at how his father loves his
mm-hmm.
mother, and just a lack of that not being there. Um, but yeah, but it was just a very twisted definition of what it means to be successful.
When you started growing up,
Yeah,
getting past 8 and 10,
yeah,
what was life like for you for the next
yeah,
couple years, 5, 6
yeah.
years?
So I know now that my mom and dad split or separated when I was about maybe 3 or 2, one or the other, somewhere up in there. And I was just always used to living in two households, like be with mom, go to school, weekend with dad, up until like maybe that Monday or Tuesday when I was just used to just living separate. And so I thought it was normal until I
Mm,
until I knew that it wasn't.
mm.
So around, I think about 6 or 7, I'd say about 7 is where my life. I'm trying to figure this out. I'd say probably about 7 or 8 is when I probably experienced the worst 4 years of my life. I would say the absolute worst 4 years of my life. Um, like mom had just, I mean, she's always been a rebellious person, and I was getting detail with this, and this is where it gets pretty deep. Like mom was just, she had that mindset that I don't need anybody telling me what to do. I'm my own person, and it comes for her being abused or mentally abused and emotionally just like disregarded as a human being in her home. My grandfather was very abusive mentally and emotionally to her, would call her anything under the sun. He was just a very angry man. And he himself was just he wasn't, what's the word I'm looking for? He wasn't faithful in his marriage either. And so it's just like you see it's generational. Even his father abused him like
Mm.
very bad. It was horrible. I mean,
So
it
this is
just
a very generational
yeah,
thing.
it's his generation, so it just passes and it's just like, man, there's so much pressure to be the one that wants to step away from that. And so just mom, growing up dealing with those issues when she finally got about 17 or 18, 16 around that area in that time period, that's when you could be independent. That's where you could go off and live wherever without having permission of your parents or whatnot. And so 17, 18, she just got wild and she got into church. She lived with my aunt in Memphis. She went back to Memphis because she was raised in Mississippi. And so that's
What
when
was
she
church culture like for her when she was 17,
when she was
18?
it was I would say I don't think she was in church until she moved with my aunt. I'm not sure, but that church culture back then. I mean, it's just I don't for some reason it felt pure back then. Early 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
late 90s.
Seemed like young people were just had this happiness about them.
Yeah,
Didn't have phones.
yeah, everything's pure.
There's no, I don't think the same
Yeah,
anxieties and stresses and
yeah,
comparing yourselves and things like
yeah,
that. You were just happy to be you
yeah.
wherever you are.
But also, I would say it's easier for us to slip and fall into stuff and easily get out easily, more easy than it was for them because, like you said, they didn't have phones or anything like that. But once they're out there and experience that and their eyes are open to that and they're fascinated by sin, it's very hard for them to pull from their lifestyle. Whereas us, we can experience on our phone scrolling through reels.
Yeah.
If we fall into something, it's easier for us to detach from that emotionally and pull back.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
but yeah, for that, it was, how can I put this? Holiness wasn't such a tug of war if you were involved in the church, if you were deep in it, I would say. That's when like you had the music, Kirk Franklin's and all that stuff coming
Mm.
out in a black community like that in Memphis and things of that nature. Everything was about worship. But the problem was, I believe that some way, somehow, people would worship. But it was more. How can I put this? Everything was cleaner back then,
Mm.
you know. But I guess it just wasn't enough for mom because she met my dad in church, at the apostolic church that I grew up in a little bit, and And she gave me the whole story about it. He actually played organ there at my aunt's church. It's called Pillar of Faith in Memphis. Um, and that's where they met. He played organ. He was a musician. You know, crazy thing is he couldn't read music, but he just played by ear. It was just the anointing.
Mm.
He played by ear. Just he could put stuff together, and it's just man, he could play. And just tears fall. You know, and it's just God anointed him for that. He was his my great grandmother, Grandma Liz. She was a church mother. She prayed like nobody's business. She was holy. She had hair uncut,
Mm.
didn't wear jewelry, anything of that nature. Dressed modestly. She hammered us, bro. She was on our cases, man. And then while everybody else seemed to kind of sway and kind of pivot, it's like she stood her ground. And I could just remember, you know, my grandmother, which was my father's mother. She was a church secretary. She served. She was a prayer warrior. She would travail. And I'm young, growing up. I'm listening to all this, and I see people screaming. It's just kind of normal, you know.
Mm.
You know, but I just never understood it until later. But yeah, but she met my dad there, and they got married. Had they had my sister. It was a miscarriage, and then they had my brother, Ron, and then they had me. So I was the last one there. I think I was a miracle baby. Had complications. They had a lot of complications with obviously the first child, and my brother had complications with him. You know, he has autism now, brain injuries and stuff like that. Just all types of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was like the only kid that came out, you know, normal rather.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's just at one point, I guess, just the church life, living a clean life, just wasn't enough for mom, and she ended up being unfaithful in a marriage,
Mm.
doing whatever she wanted to do, went out and partied or whatnot, and they separated. She was like I said, when she got that freedom from being in the house with her father, when she got that taste of freedom, you know, she kept that mentality that nobody can tell me what to do, not even God. And so it broke her marriage. She got away from church. It broke her kids. It broke everything she touches. And regardless of it's crazy because it seems that no matter how much destruction you know for a fact you're causing, you will not stop because you don't want anybody telling you what to do. Rebellion is such a cancer, bro.
Mm.
Rebellion is such a cancer. To when you get in this mindset that nobody can tell you what to do. You don't want to listen to a man of God. You don't want to listen to a preacher. You don't want to listen to God Himself, even when He's putting stuff in your path. No, it just seemed like that. No matter what God was showing her, what God was doing to wake her up, she refused to listen, even to her kids. And when it gets to the point where your kids know that, hey, mom, like this ain't right. You're breaking us. I remember days we were telling her like, hey, you are hurting us. Like, let us go live with our dad. You are literally hurting us. And it's just like she made us fit her lifestyle. She made us put up with her lifestyle because she wanted everybody on the outside to make it seem like she was okay in handling her business, but really she was killing her kids on the inside. And so, man, rebellion, bro, it's such a cancer. It's such a horrible thing. And bro, she's borderline reprobate at this point, you know, and it kills a lot of things around you, your friends, relationships. You know, she had aunties that loved her dearly, and it just caused her to break those relationships too. So it's just a big moment of just destruction, bro. Honestly, um,
It takes awareness to be able to
yeah,
look at someone and be able to diagnose
yeah,
what is wrong.
yeah,
Sometimes in life, like there's seasons in life where things are just going on. Things
yeah,
aren't good.
yeah,
Like maybe you're 15 and she's doing these things or
yeah,
someone is doing something,
yeah,
but you don't really
yeah,
understand what it is that they're doing until
yeah,
years down the road when you're gone, you're
yeah,
out. And you look back and you're like, when you were doing this, it was affecting us like this.
yeah,
And that is
yeah,
rebellious. That
yeah,
is this. That is this.
yeah,
Um, Typically, a good sign, though, a healthy sign of an individual is when you
yeah,
can identify it.
yeah. It
If
was, it
if
was
you
a,
can't
yeah,
identify something, you're not going to kill it.
yeah,
If you don't know how to put a name to it,
yeah,
you don't know how to properly address it.
yeah. And at a very young age where I had wisdom on that. Hey, this isn't right. Just how I mean, it would just break you. And I was so in tune with my emotions, man. It's like, bro, looking back, I know for a fact that at 8 years old, my soul was vexed,
Mm.
you know? Um, and I just kind of want to paint a picture of how it was. But like I said, it was the worst 4 years of my life because she met a man that was retired veteran or something like the military. He got discharged because of his wound or whatever. He had a gunshot wound or whatnot. And bro, it was just he was a drunk. He did cocaine. He was abusive, bro. And all she saw was just the cars he had, the house he had, the money, the security, and all the things, the stuff that she didn't have from her father. Typical daddy issues, bro. And 4 years of my life went down a drain. She didn't want to leave him, and so we stayed there, regardless of how he treated her, regardless of what he did to us. That I was abused. Just, I remember, bro. Um, I really remember. Um, it got to a point around like 9 or 10 where I would pray, and looking back on it now, I could see that I was suicidal.
At what age?
9, 9 years old, bro. I could look back and see that I was suicidal by the stuff I would pray, things I would think. I would sit up late at night wondering, I'm like, man, if I went away, just never came back or disappeared somewhere or died, and I wonder if it would, how bad it would hurt mom. I would contemplate in my mind, if it would hurt mom that bad to be gone, because it seems like she doesn't care about us either, anyway.
Hmm.
And I can remember nightmares, bro, about mom getting killed or some just bad stuff happening, bro. I was just traumatized at such a young age, but because I knew I didn't feel safe at one moment in the house, because anything could pop off. You could get mad and just throw dishes. They're fighting, or I can remember, bro, just me dude like clothes ripped off of her body in front of us, bro. Just exposing anything and everything. Fights outside. We're outside playing one minute with our friends, and the next moment they're just throwing hands it's just
Yeah.
it's a very embarrassing thing.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knew us as the kids on the block who had a mom that was on drugs with some sugar daddy. Basically, that's how it looked to everybody.
Yeah.
And and bro, it was just very abusive. Like I said, I would have nightmares. I didn't want to go to bed because of the nightmares I would have, but also didn't want to go to bed because if they get to fighting and I'm not there to step in, because it seemed like every time I would like get up or walk in a room or just like stand in between them, like everything is just like everything stopped, and they'd be like, "Yo, what are we doing?" It's like it was like almost a shut off moment when I would step into place.
Hmm.
Also, there would be times where I would pray, and while they're fighting and while they're just, things are breaking, they're slamming each other. He's beating her.
Hmm.
And I can remember I would pray. I didn't know much about God, but I just knew the prayers of my grandmother, my father. I would look upon stuff like that. I would just remember that they called on His name and stuff, and they claimed that stuff happened.
Hmm.
And I remember I would be in my room, and the argument is just at a climax, bro. And I would just pray and just call on Him, and all of a sudden, like the fighting would cease. It's like it was almost like a holy hush would hit the house. And so I think at that point of my life, like that was when I really understood and truly began to believe that there was a God. That, in Sunday school they teach you, they show you Veggie Tales and things of that nature, and you learn, but to truly experience it for yourself when trauma hits and you call on His name and He shows up and silences the room, that really did it for me, bro.
Hmm.
And so I said he'd beat us. I remember he would fight my older brother. He has autism. He don't even understand half the things that was going on. I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't save her. I felt helpless, bro. And it's just
Helpless.
like, regardless of how many times she even got fed up to the point where she would leave, and like we'd move back to Mississippi. But it seemed like, she had such a soul tie and attachment to him that, 4 months later we're right back at his house. And that means, I'm switching schools, switching districts. I'd meet friends about 3 months, and then we'd switch over and leave because they got into an argument that she didn't like, and here I am back at this other school. I couldn't make friends. I was a lonely kid. I could not. I couldn't connect with anybody. I couldn't connect with any teacher. And it seemed like right when I found my place where I belonged, it's like she just stripped me of it all just to go back to the drugs, just to go back to the supply, just to go back to the alcohol and the life. And bro, just being that unstable, it broke me as a kid. And I remember just at one point I got fed up, bro, and this is where it really, it's where it really got me, bro. I everything legally has been established because of that. But bro, I remember there was one time that I knew I was like, hey, His problem is alcohol, and I got so sick of it. I was tired. I had slept for about 2 days. Like, bro, this is like I think I'm 10. I'm trying to remember. I think I'm like 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And bro, we found his liquor bottles, and I said, okay, this is the problem. And so, dude, we poured everything we could into it. That way, when he tasted it, he wouldn't want it anymore. And bro, before I knew it, it was like we were happy that we were like destroying his liquor because it seemed as if we were doing a good thing, just because that way he'll taste it and just not want it anymore. But for some reason, he came home so messed up and broken off something, and he just downed the entire bottle, bro. And I got to thinking, I was like, we just killed this guy. He's not gonna wake up the next morning. And lo and behold, he did. And I think what really struck my heart as a kid right then, and at that moment, I was just like, man, what if it really would have been over? We would have been freezed. I'm a kid. I don't even know what I'm thinking. I watch too many killing movies, which you shouldn't allow your kids to watch. I'm just like, man, had he not woken up, we would have been free. And I almost began to get sad and upset that he woke up. But then it's like something I know now that back then it was the Holy Ghost. But then it convicted me, and I'm like, Devin, you are happy over the fact that somebody could have died. What is wrong with you? Type of a
Mm-hmm.
deal. I'm 10 years old thinking
And
this
you
stuff.
used, like you said, like you were very conscious at that
Yeah,
time.
I was
You were
very
conscious.
conscious with my emotions and with the voice of God, and I didn't know then, but now I know now. And I believe that what really broke me, still to this day, is that you know that I was so broken and messed up as a kid, and wanted so badly to get out of the situation I was in, that I was willing to do anything it took, and that if the results of what I did ended up in the wrong way, that it didn't matter. And that is when I first saw the first sign of my mother in me.
Mm-hmm.
That no matter what it takes or what it took or what's the damages, I want what I want.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I made the decision right there that I cannot be like her. It broke me, bro.
Mm-hmm.
It messed me up. I made a decision right there that I can't be anything like my mother.
Yeah.
And so 4 years passed, and even a custody battle. Our father got sick of it. He just took us. There wasn't like a legal documentation about who's in control and that. So he took us to Six Flags, just never dropped us back off at home because he saw how bad it was damaging me. My father, bro, he passed away 2 years ago, going on 2 years. Looking back, bro, he was just such a loving parent, and I'm like, mom, bro, she, I lived a life of so much manipulation. It didn't make sense, bro. She would brainwash us, tell us lies about why her and dad aren't together, and bro, she'd tell us like he left her stranded in a home or whatnot with no lights and stuff like that. Just a bunch of mess, dude. And just tell us that even he'd beat her and stuff like that, all that stuff. All because she didn't want the truth to come out, that she was the one that was rebellious. She's the one that gave up on her marriage. She's the one that constantly gave up on her kids. She's the one that didn't want to live for God. She's the one. And bro, like I said, once you get in your mind that you don't want anything to do with God, bro, it'll kill the rest of anything that's around you. And bro, she brainwashed us over and over and over again. And I remember conversations being on the phone with dad, and she'd let us call him and completely snap out and talk to him however bad we wanted to. And she'd get a kick out of it. I remember her
Mm.
was she'd be laughing and smiling. And dad would just be on the phone breaking down crying, not even knowing what's going on. And because of that, bro, I grew up my mid teens, preteens, almost about 17 years old, hating my father, not wanting anything to do with him. And, he's working paying child support for kids that hate him because of a lie that their mother told him. And now knowing the fact that, I'm trying to see if we can even get into this right now, the fact that my dad getting saved and stuff. Okay, so just looking back, a year and a half ago, that I haven't had a good connection with my dad, and I found out about the entire truth at my graduation, my high school graduation. I remember walking across the stage with a floor, getting my diploma. Ceremony is over. We throw our hats. I walk outside, and right there, right then and there, I'm handed divorce papers, like finalized divorce papers, like the
Why?
one of
Why
the
at that
happy,
moment?
why the happiest moment, one of the happiest moments of my life. Cause bro, I is at this time, 16 and 17, going into my junior year of high school. I left home because I left her house. I said I can't put up with this anymore because I found the call of God. I found the church that I need to be at. I found truth. I was saved. I said I cannot be in this house. and be safe. So I decided to sleep in a car that I saved up for that I bought. I
Mm.
slept in my car my junior year of high school, going into my senior year, because I could not be at that house. And just in that moment, bro, just it was bad because everything began to come to the light, you know. And so like me graduating high school, having to deal with all that stuff. Even I was playing sports in high school too, but accomplishing all these things, keeping my head, pulling through, making good grades, just staying the course. You know, that's right around the time I met you, actually.
I remember that. I
Yeah,
feel like I almost remember
yeah,
you sleeping in your car when
yeah,
we were friends.
yeah,
If maybe that was the
yeah.
tail
That
end
was
of
it. Yeah,
that.
yeah. That was it. You're. I don't know why, but it seems like you were the only one that I let know that. You know, but bro, I just my high school graduation, me getting that diploma at that moment, it just meant the world to me because I'm like, man, God really helped me do this thing. You know, He pulled me through. It was just a very emotional thing because I had my dad, because I began to find out the truth about him and mom and stuff of that nature. And I go outside, my sister's there, and the first thing I'm handed are divorce papers. Not a hey, I love you. Not a hey, thank you. And my mom, bro, she didn't support me at all. Now I know like now, I don't play sports or anything like that. I'm against like I'm not really for them. I don't idolize them like I used to. But like just the fact of like me loving something and me wanting to you know, uh, be a part of a team and work together with some brothers.
Yeah.
That was basketball.
Yeah.
And I could just remember me begging my mom. I even like, I remember I used to have a little book, bro, when I was younger. I started playing ball when I was like 11 for a Pee Wee team. I remember having this little book and I kept it all the way throughout high school. And I would just jot down games that I've had and games that she would come to. I remember, I think I got up, even just like summer ball, bro. I think I tallied up almost over like probably like I think I stopped counting right after like maybe 450 or something like that. Because I realized that after 450 games, she hadn't came to one. And the reason being is that, oh, I'm sick, I'm doing this, doing that, or I just don't feel good. And I get home, a house party's being thrown with a bunch of liquor and alcohol and drugs and stuff like that. So it just crushed me.
Yeah.
And so at my high school graduation, she came, she had an attitude that she deserved my diploma. She deserved to hang it up in her house. She deserved this, she deserved that. And I hadn't seen her since I've been sleeping in my car. And I allowed her to come. And she just obliterated my dad. And so like first thing I'm handed are divorce papers because you have to have somebody. I guess when you serve divorce papers, you have to have somebody there to witness. And I guess I was the witness they chose. It was like,
Thanks.
yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
Mom.
This
Thanks for
is
the
a this is
graduation
a
present.
yeah, it's a good graduation present. But I just remember at that moment that I knew, okay, yeah, it's actually over. There's no hope for them getting back together. And I just remember my cousin, my older cousin, Kendrick. He actually just passed a couple days ago. He had a heart attack in his sleep. I remember him being there. He just held me. He said, "Devin, he's like, don't be mad at this. You know, hey, this is biblical. This is a matter of what's right. She was unfaithful. She broke that. You know, he has every right to leave." And he said, "Just keep it pushing." And I remember Dad looking at me, and I believe that if I had told my dad loved me so much, had I told him that I didn't want them splitting and I wanted them to get back together, he would still continue because he fought for the marriage after everything broke. You know, and so he's just a person that loved unconditionally despite what you did to him. So you could break his heart or break his trust in some way, somehow he'll find a way to believe you and trust you again. He was just a loving person, bro. But just to like I said, mom just manipulated us, and I didn't know my dad as much as I should have. But now that 18, well, no, I was 19, 20, probably 20, somewhere in between there. I woke up one day and I was just like, man, I know the truth about mom and dad. I need to mend some things with my father. You know,
Hmm.
like I gotta make this thing right. 'Cause I'm sure he wasn't mad at us. He knew that we were just kids, but I need dad to hear this for myself. That hey, dad, I understand everything now, and I'm so sorry for how I treated you and all these things, even though it wasn't my fault. Even though I was just being a dumb kid, and I just had to sit. I grabbed him. I sit him down. I said, hey, you know, I understand everything that went on. We were in my car driving. We had dinner because he lived in Memphis. I was in Holly Springs. It wasn't that far away. And I looked at him. I said, Dad, I understand everything that Mom has done. I know that you weren't the bad guy. I know that she was the one that wrecked everything. And bro, the tears that fell out of his eyes. it was just like it was a moment that, you know, after all these years, I think 18, 19, 20 years, he understood for the first time that his child knew that he wasn't the one that wrecked everything. And so,